Hello everyone, just a quick word from your friendly editor/husband. For all of you who listen to So I'm Watching This Show and own an Android device, do me a favor. Go to the Google Play Store and download the Podcast Republic app. It's a fantastic app that allows you to get all of your favorite podcasts directly on your Android devices. I use the app and love it. I can search for the podcasts I want to listen to, select them as favorites, and have them all just a click away. Make sure you set So I'm Watching the Show as a favorite so you don't miss any new episodes. Again, the app is Podcast Republic, available on your Android device. Thanks!
I was gonna ask if you would be able to act if I told the Advent calendar story, if you would be able to act like you didn't know, but...
Probably not.
Well, I'm going to tell it anyways, even though you already know. So I'm dog sitting at Anne's, and she always leaves me a lot of notes, which I absolutely appreciate instructions because I dog sit and house sit for a lot of people, and I forget. But Anne does have a tendency to leave me a lot of notes. And so sometimes they jumble a little bit. And she left me a note saying that she had left an Advent calendar on the counter, and she told me to use it. She was like, go ahead and just have at it. And I was like, oh, cool, treats. And so I opened it, and it was this really weird cookie that was like, I just assumed it was stale because a couple of the doors were already open.
Well, it's also like well past when you should have opened your first door on an advent calendar.
Yeah, and so I just thought they were stale, and they were kind of bland and like 40% vanilla,
okay,
and a little bit chewy, and so there was something kind of addictive about it where I was like, that's not very good. But then well, first of all, I was checking to see if there were different treats because I was like looking for chocolate or something. And so by this point, I have eaten 3 of them, and I come to the 4th one, and it is very conspicuously shaped like a dog bone. And at this point, I realized that I am here dog sitting.
Yeah.
And that this Advent calendar was on the counter with all of the dogs' medicine and leash and everything. And so I did notice that there was no description on it, like there was no nutritional panel or anything.
Sure.
So I had more than one dog treat, and it was enough that I went back. I kept eating them. Hello, everybody. I am Will.
And I'm Kristen.
And this is So I'm Watching This Show. On today's episode, we're going to have, I'm imagining it's going to be a pretty light episode. We're going to talk about some medium January movies. Yay!
Yep. I'm excited, though.
Thunderous applause.
Yeah.
Just rounds of applause.
Like as if Vanessa Redgrave had just walked in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Or Julie Andrews, for that matter.
Or Julie Andrews.
So we're going to see Underwater. And gotta keep my head underwater.
I asked you specifically not to do that.
Don't let me drown. Don't let me. It's that Melissa song. What's her name? Avril Lavigne. There you go.
Avril Lavigne, yeah.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Underwater, and then we're going to talk about Like a Boss. I guess when you hear from us next, we will be back from Underwater.
Why did you do that?
Because sometimes when there's 2 movies, he puts like a soundbite, like a trailer thing.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I'm very tired. I was like, we already saw this, right?
Yeah. Wait, you saw Underwater? I asked you to invite me when you guys go to the movies.
Listen carefully. You are now 5,000 miles from land, and you're descending 7 miles to the bottom of the ocean. See you all in a month.
Here we go.
On a scale from 1 to 10, how bad's my rig?
10. We drilled to the bottom of the ocean, and we don't know what came out.
Gotta get to the station.
How would we even get there?
We walk. We're just gonna walk with insufficient oxygen across the bottom of the ocean.
You don't know what's out there.
Worst idea ever. It's pulling me underwater!
Well, we just got back from seeing Underwater
Yes, we did.
seconds ago. So, do we need to set it up? It's about Kristen Stewart and company, and they're in a lab at the bottom of the Mariana Trench.
It's like a drilling expedition.
Yeah, they're doing something. The movie, that's actually, well, we'll get to it, but, and they're underwater, and they're trying to not be. So, what did you think?
I liked it a lot, actually.
You would say a lot?
Yeah, I would say a lot. I thought it was, first of all, I looked it up after the fact. This was 93 minutes long, which is the exact right length of time for this movie specifically. I have said it before and I'll say it forever. 90 minutes is like good for this kind of like monster / disaster movie. It does not need to be longer than that. I don't need to get deep into like character studies about anybody. Like that's not what this movie is about. And I think it did what it promised it was going to do for me very well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I liked it a lot.
I liked it. I certainly liked it fine. I don't know that I would go as far as to say I liked it a lot. It was certainly better than I was expecting it to be.
Yeah.
And it's better than, I think at this point, its reputation, because it filmed like 3 years ago. And
it did in 2017, which is bananas, but it's also why TJ Miller gets an and credit.
Yeah.
It was like caught up in the Disney Fox merger.
Yeah.
So that's why it got like shelved weirdly for like
It's also January
2+ years.
10th, and that's not the weekend for like the quality movies.
No, generally not. But I think it's better. I think it's better than January 10th. This could have been a summer movie and I would have been fine with it.
I think it being a January movie is gonna serve in its favor.
I do agree with you, but I think it could have survived in the summer.
And okay, well.
It depends what weekend.
Yeah. Well, you definitely, at least more recently, we have started getting some weird little gems. It's like occasionally, it's more like if they're unsure about a movie or if there's politics behind the scenes, like with this movie, and it'll just kind of come out in a dumping ground.
Sure.
And you go see it and you're like, oh, that was like half decent. And so I think it's a fine movie. In all honesty, I could have used with probably 10, max 15 more minutes
of what?
Where we actually got some character, some establishing.
I mean, at the beginning?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
I did enjoy that. I mean, the movie has, I don't even think you're at the 5-minute mark when the movie has started.
Yeah,
like,
not even,
started.
definitely not even 5 minutes.
And so, because I don't know what they were doing, and I wish I knew what they were doing. Like, I wish I had a reason for why they were down there.
They
and
were
why
drilling.
I understand that, but I don't care about that. I wish, I wish that there was, like, I wish the movie gave us an emotional connection to what they were doing and why they were doing it, not, like, some off excuse as to, like, what was happening.
Well, I have a theory about that, and it's that this movie is commentary about, like, the damage that we're doing to the Earth.
Cool. Well, then I wish they hit that note a little bit harder. And I could have definitely done with a little bit more character development from all of them, but certainly a couple of them. And frankly, I mean, even Kristen Stewart, it's like, there's a part of me that wishes that maybe we got to know a couple of the others first and then got to know her along the way. I don't know. I don't need a lot. I don't want a lot, but it just like, other than the knowledge going into the movie that I want these people to come out of it alive.
Yeah.
There wasn't a lot for me to grab onto. And
yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with you that they could have deepened some stuff, like maybe treated these people as a team first, but I think I liked the fact that they very specifically weren't a team. Like, only really 3 of them knew who each other were.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Well, then maybe I wish that they had some material within the movie, like
That's
just a
fair.
pocket where they actually kind of bonded. Because you got the sense that, and I don't remember their names, but you got the sense that Kristen Stewart had like a relationship with Vincent Castle, but
yeah.
I wish it played, and I don't want flashbacks. I didn't need or want flashbacks.
Definitely not flashbacks.
I wish it played out more in a way that, like, you know, spoiler alert for the January 10th movie, but when, like, Vincent Castle, quote unquote, dies, I was like, oh, this is happening. And then part of me was like, oh, it's happening this quickly. Like, I guess I figured we were going to build to it more.
Yeah, I would honestly say that's some of the stuff that I liked the best, to be honest, is like how it just went. It was just happening. There was like not a lot of moments where I felt like they were dragging stuff out, which was nice. And they also did that thing that we've talked about before where like they just like skipped some of the hard stuff.
Yeah, that
like,
was
dragging
appreciated.
themselves places. They just like cut in between. Like we didn't have to watch them walk all 22 meters or whatever it was. Like that kind of stuff was really good. And so I appreciate that they didn't like, I understand wanting like a little bit more character stuff, and I can agree with that to a point, but I do also like how just like start to finish like high octane this was, because it was very like nonstop shit happening.
I think that worked for Crawl when we're dealing with two people, but
sure.
The team I wanted a bit more, because it's like I liked Lee. I remember her name Lee because Kristen Stewart says it 470 in the middle of the movie. But
well, Lee's a dude. Emily was Jessica Henwick.
You can see how that. I liked Emily, and even especially because like obviously we get the information that she's new because T.J. Miller called her an intern, and she was offended by that, and then she was scared, and then there's that moment where she pauses and looks at the mural, and I really couldn't identify what it was. That looked kind of like. It definitely wasn't mermaids, but it was like stuff. It was like
it felt almost like a mashup of like a Renaissance painting and then like an H.P. Lovecraft kind of thing.
Yeah, and so stuff like that I could have used a little bit more of.
Sure.
I could have allowed, like, had it been fleshed out a bit more. There are monsters in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go ahead and say I could have used a bit more from them. And I will go ahead and say an explanation. However, I have a feeling that any explanation we were given, I would have not liked. So...
Well, before you get there, I want to say that the only thing that disappointed me about the monsters is that they were very Cloverfield with the way their mouths opened. And I'm fucking done with monsters that mouths open that way.
They were also anthropomorphic, speaking of mermaids, in a way that I was just kind of like, whoa, I don't know. It took itself very seriously, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I think for my enjoyment, I prefer, like, when faced with this movie and the Meg, I'm most likely going to go for the Meg.
Oh, I mean, I think I would too, just because it's like 100% sillier.
The cheese factor, yeah.
Yeah, the cheese factor is like has a lot more of a like rewatchability factor, but like, I don't know. I think this was a good movie.
Yeah, I think it was fine. And certainly, if I were younger, I would have liked it more, because at this point now, I've seen so many of the things that it is derivative of.
Of course. And I thought that it was more homage than like cribbing off of other stuff, where like I felt the Alien and I felt the Descent and I felt all these things. Like Will mentioned, I mentioned Event Horizon, and Will mentioned a fucking Stallone movie called Daybreak or Daylight.
Well, and I said Sunshine.
And you said Sunshine. So I felt all of those influences, but they didn't feel like stealing. They felt like influences.
It didn't have enough of an identity on its own. I wanted it to be doing its own thing in order to properly pay homage. So,
yeah.
And again, honestly, I think it was fine. And certainly for this time, and I don't think anybody embarrassed themselves. Although I didn't realize that it had been a minute since TJ Miller had been on my screen.
Yeah.
And I really didn't miss him.
Yeah, I leaned over to Will partway through and I was like, I really wish I didn't find him as funny as I do.
Do you?
Because
okay.
I do still think obviously he didn't write this role, these lines for himself, but
he had some Me Too drama happen.
He did have some Me Too drama, but I think he has such good comedic timing and like delivery, and so it like makes me upset when I still am very entertained by him, because I'm like, I don't want to be entertained by a shitbag. You know what I mean?
You should forgive yourself for that, but
well, I mean, I try my best, but
yeah,
that was like, and especially because I know that Kristen Stewart's going to get like garbage for being in a movie with him, and I'm just like, she filmed this 3 years ago before that came out. Like, give her a break.
She was good. She held this down pretty well. I do like her. I do. And I will seek her out, especially now. However, there is a part of me that is still like, that's Kristen Stewart.
There is a part of me that will, I think, always say, but that's Kristen Stewart. But the more things I see her in, the less I feel that way.
The more that I'm seeing her in, the more that I'm sort of like proud of, I'm like rooting for her.
I am so rooting for her. I'm like rooting for her so hard.
She didn't embarrass herself at all. And I think she held it down in a way. And more importantly, I think the audience took her seriously, which that's a big hurdle for her at this moment, is seeing if because she's obviously been re-embraced by the indie circuit. And
well, she's been embraced by the indie circuit the whole time. I was going to say, this movie and Charlie's Angels were the moments that, like, the Twilight audience could embrace her again.
Well, but I even mean, because at a certain point, you know, it's like all the bad jokes, they trickle down kind of like a cerulean sweater. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, and so there's still some residue on her in a way that we were in a full theater, which surprised me.
It was pretty full, yeah.
A fairly average theater. And I felt like people were taking her and the movie seriously, up to including the scene where she punched who did she punch in the face?
Emily.
Oh, Emily. Yeah, it was really great, actually.
It was amazing. I was
and
like,
the theater
so
responded,
glad.
And and I liked the ending, and I liked. Obviously, we said full spoilers. I'm also glad that Emily and Lee made it out, and B, that they're the two that did. Yeah, because I think they were the most deserving,
for sure.
And I am sorry that we didn't get to see them surface. It was a part of me that felt like I needed that completion. I needed that gravity moment where they breathed the air again. That could have been part of the
10 or 15 minutes that you needed.
Yeah.
I have a feeling, because of how long ago this filmed and because of all of the Fox and Disney stuff that happened in between, I think this might have passed through a couple more hands than they originally intended. And so I would imagine some stuff is on the cutting room floor.
That checks. And or possibly even didn't get finished in the first place.
That is 100% possible as well. I mean, when you take into account all the stuff that is probably happening behind the scenes, I think this is the best movie it could have been.
Mm-hmm. There were some points in the middle where I was having a very hard time identifying what was happening. And I mean, I am aware that was by design, but it did frustrate me nonetheless. And also, I mean, it was a PG-13 and it was a good use of a PG-13.
Yeah.
And if I were of a certain age and discovered this on cable, you know what I mean? It would have been a great sort of like transition movie, transitioning from like family movies into adult movies and stuff. Yeah. Not unlike the role that Deep Blue Sea served for me when I was 13.
That's a good point. I do think this is slightly better than Deep Blue Sea.
Oh, from a quality, from a quality perspective.
It's like way more quality than Deep Blue Sea, but Deep Blue Sea has that silly rewatchability to it. Mm-hmm. And Saffron Burrows, who we have recently talked quite a lot about.
And Tom Jane.
And LL Cool J. We can't forget any of these people.
Any reason to talk about. I made a couple funny jokes while we were there, but I don't really remember what they were or how to work them in. Because we get that monster at the end that I made the joke that was voiced by Julie Andrews. Yeah. It was an Aquaman reference, because that's what it looked like.
It's just definitely Cthulhu.
Yeah, but Cthulhu is supposed to be from another world. Well, so it's like if they were drilling and they broke through, because there's a part that wasn't there like a short story or something where they were drilling and they accidentally opened a portal to hell. It's like that's something that I could kind of.
I remember one of the things that you said, because we find out partway through that Kristen Stewart had a fiance who was killed, and you were like, the funny thing is he was in space and he got killed by an alien.
So she made a vow never to go into space.
And instead she went down underwater and got killed by a fucking alien.
By a sea monster. I did say. And also they were trying to get from one place to another underwater. And I was like, just wrap some foil around yourself. Because they do that in Sunshine. And
well,
I liked the suits. I don't think we're there technologically, are we?
I don't know that we're there to be walking across the bottom of the Mariana Trench, but we can like deep sea.
I bought it. Is my thing. I was like, yeah, that checks.
I don't think that we're quite that far, but we have like pretty deep sea capabilities.
Also, why even did the things have eyes? They couldn't see, and also how were they not bioluminescent? I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm just going to continue poking holes.
I had some issues with the monsters for sure.
I loved when she stumbled upon the octopus, and at first she was like, ah, and then she was like, oh, phew. And I was like, it's just a normal giant undersea monster.
It's just an octopus that's 3 times the size of me. It's fine. Yeah, I don't know. I mostly like, I mean, I don't think it's a perfect movie, but it was the perfect movie for me today.
You can spend your coins on far worse.
Oh, for sure. Yeah,
So-
if you are staring down the barrel of 2 more months of bullshit at the movies, just go see this instead.
Mm-hmm. I don't think I have much more to say.
No, I mean, if we think of anything, we can tack it on the beginning of our Like a Boss section.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah,
So, all
I
right,
dug
cool.
it. I'm always into Kristen Stewart. If you want to see Kristen Stewart in her underwear a lot,
That felt like the Alien homages to me.
for
She
sure,
was in her
it
underwear.
definitely was. Yeah, it definitely was. And she even had the yellow exosuit for a little while,
Mm-hmm.
which is like an Aliens thing. But yeah.
I wanted them to explain the spider.
Yeah, where the fuck did it get down there from?
Yeah, I was like, how the fuck did a daddy long legs get down there? But
I think that's part of like that's part of the point, but it also
it's like a microcosm.
Yeah, it also did like beg a couple of more questions where I was like, was it like in something that someone brought down there? And it was like only one of them. And
I will say one of the coolest parts of the movie was when the first dude exploded, which sloppy that they killed the black guy first, but I'm not gonna.
I agree. And I was bummed.
There's a point where I'm like, unless you're like purposefully commenting on stuff, which it wasn't doing enough of that, it just feels sloppy. But having said that, it was cool when he exploded.
Well, and they made a point, like Kristen Stewart made a point to say he knew that his was faulty, and so he
because he picked up the crack one and then gave her the good one.
And gave her the good one. And I think I mean, it wasn't, they didn't put enough of a button on it, but I think it was the type of thing where, like you always say, if there's a disaster, you're like gonna kill yourself.
Oh,
and I think he might have been like, I can't make it through this, so I'm gonna just...
That was one of the easiest ways to go, because your brain can't even process that. And I did think some of the science certainly held up for me, because when you're dealing with ocean pressure at that level, it does create light. It does create explosions and stuff. I read this whole thing about parrot shrimp on the oatmeal, so I'm like an expert.
Oh, the mantis shrimp.
Mantis shrimp, there you go. Because they can punch with such a ferocity that it creates air bubbles and lightning strikes.
Yeah.
So okay, cool.
All right. Well, we'll be back after Like a Boss.
Why is dream sex way better than real sex?
Because they come when you want them to.
Girl, that is so true. When I'm done, they done. Hello.
You ever think about all the stuff we've done and wonder how we did not die?
It's not a real hair.
It's a cultural thing. We are 2 badass queens like those bitches who raised Wonder Woman. We've worked our asses off. We've opened up our own store. We're winning.
We're $493,000 in debt.
What the?
Walk into the room.
Mel Page and Mia Carter. I'm Clara Luna. I am going to invest $1.7 million on you.
We would love $1 million.
But in my experience, business and friendship don't always mix.
You don't have to worry your pretty little head.
My head is not little. It's just that my breasts are humongous. If you want to be a businesswoman, you're gonna have to act like a boss. You have to fire him.
What? Don't hate me. Hate Mel. It was her idea. What? Yes, it was your idea. Hey, witness my tragic moment.
You were just telling me about how World War I took place in 1970.
No, that's not what I said. That's what you heard.
Yeah, I heard you. I said it was like a couple hundred years ago, and you were like, no. And I was like, whatever,
Like-
who cares?
Like barely 100 years ago.
We weren't even a country. It doesn't matter.
We are over 200. You're killing me.
I know when World War I took place.
Do you?
Yes.
Okay.
I do bits. I don't know if you know that about me.
I do. I hate it.
Yeah, I bet you if I stopped doing them right now, you would be happy.
I mean, I would be happy if you stopped doing this one right now.
Oh. Well, this one's not a bit, though. Holy shit, I just Googled Like a Boss and it says 2020. I was like, that can't be right. It's like
Definitely
the first
right.
time I've looked at the date, like I've heard it.
Yeah.
But it's the first time I looked at it, and I was like, that's the future.
No, it's definitely right. We got an email from our boss last week, or the week before last, right when it was New Year's, and he was like, just in case for like liability reasons, he was like, I can't imagine it's going to come up too much, but make sure you write the whole year
2020, yeah.
2020, so that people can't be like, well, you meant 2019.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, it feels a little like overkill, but at the same time, I was like, that's the thing that we have to do now, at least for this year.
Okay, so we just got back from seeing Like a Boss.
Yes.
And I thought it was great. I liked it.
Yeah, me too. I thought it was really cute. It was like very gentle, but it was like the kind of movie that I like.
Uh-huh.
The kind of like easy movie that has like really high rewatchability.
Yeah, it's got a 22 on Rotten Tomatoes, and
it's too low. Way too low.
It says it oversees a merger of powerful comedic talents, but the end results are likely to leave audience members feeling swindled out of their investment. And no, I
definitely don't feel
swindled out of your investment.
What the hell is this? Am I like an old-timey prospector? What's going on? Swindled is a very weird word to say.
It was a very low-stakes movie, and it's
What, are they going to still be friends at the end?
Well,
surprise.
If anything, I was impressed that there was as much story as there was. I expected less story, and I expected more ridiculous jokes, and I got more story and more grounded jokes.
Yeah.
And I think the movie's biggest flaw is that most of the good material is in one of the 2 trailers they released. It did not need a second trailer.
I agree with that.
Certainly not a Red Band trailer, because it's not that raunchy of a movie.
It's really not. I mean, it's rated R, but it's mostly just for language.
Yeah. Like, there's no nudity, there's no violence. Like, yeah.
Unless you count the cake. The
that
vagina
was
funny.
Cake. I think my favorite part was that it was shitting.
It like had a defined
there was
asshole,
like a Hershey's kiss coming out. There was one part that actually like tickled me. Like, I was hysterical, and I now cannot remember what it was. It was after the halfway point. I know that much. But
yeah.
I would obviously like most immediately compare this to that Amy Schumer, I Feel Pretty, and Rebel Wilson, Isn't It Romantic?
Sure, yeah.
And frankly, I think this is a better movie than those two.
Well, both of those relied on your ability to accept that a head injury would do either of those things to you. And this was more straightforward and like 100% in reality.
Mm-hmm. We saw it in a full theater of boozy women, and that added because they were thoroughly enjoying it too.
Definitely.
And I think the stars were well matched. It did have a talented cast. It's Tiffany Haddish, Rose Byrne, Selma Hayek, Jennifer Coolidge, Billy Porter, Ari Gaynor, Natasha Rothwell, Jessica St. Clair, like...
Ryan Hansen was in it.
Yeah.
What the guy, Karen, it looks like it's Karen Sony.
Yeah.
Yeah. The one from... Deadpool. Shit, I like totally forgot the name of that movie. Deadpool, and he's also on that show Miracle Workers that I just recently talked about in our year-end. He is very funny, and his deliveries are always correct.
But Tiffany and Rose were good together. I think Rose...
I thought they had really good chemistry.
I think Rose is such an underrated actress, period.
Yeah.
But particularly comedic actress and leading lady, both of those. And they were very good together. It was a more restrained performance from Tiffany Haddish, which I appreciated because a little bit of Tiffany Haddish goes a long way. And they were kind of an odd couple, but I didn't have too difficult of a time believing it. And I honestly, if you want to know the truth, I think my single favorite thing about this like kind of run-of-the-mill January comedy is the dynamics between all the friends.
Yeah.
Because it obviously is focusing on a relationship and a business relationship between 2 best friends. But within that, they have other friendship circles and levels. And that was something that I really feel like doesn't get explored a ton.
No, I totally agree. And this is my turn to use your often used lament, which is that I kind of wish this was a TV show. Because I could have used way more Ari Grainer. Because she is, I also think, very underrated, and I think she doesn't get the amount of work that she should, because I see her very infrequently. But I could have also felt the same way about Jessica St. Clair and Natasha Rothwell, where like I could have handled the 5 of them hanging out like 3 or 4 more times. Because and like exploring their dynamic with each other.
Because it feels like they're a friend group, like the 5 of them are a friend group, but it feels like the other 3 are further along in their personal lives than Rose and Tiffany. And so it's like the movie didn't need flashbacks of all of them in college and stuff, but it just sort of...
especially because Ari Grainer is younger than all of them. Yeah.
But I think that's very authentic, where it's like, I think a lot of people have their best friend, and then they have their clique, but then they also have their work best friends, and then their work clique, and then it's just like, that was interesting, and there's obviously a point in the movie where Rose and Tiffany get into a huge fight, and they like part way for, what did they say, 3 weeks? Tiffany Haddish was like, I didn't brush my teeth for 3 weeks, because Rose Byrne always did everything for her.
Puts her toothpaste on her toothbrush for her.
And it like, there's a scene where it shows each of them individually talking to the other 3. And that's that was a moment where I was like, this is actually, I mean, it doesn't go to any groundbreaking places whatsoever, but that was a moment where I was like, you know what, there's a little bit of thought in this, because you know, with the other friends, it could have ended with them jumping out of the window into the pool and we never see them again. You know what I mean?
Exactly. I'm glad that those 3 women were not in that scene only. I'm glad that they like were in more parts of it. Just as like a really quick aside, Ari Grainer is also going to be in Mrs. America.
Oh, is she?
So we will be getting some more of her this year.
And you're right. I Jessica St. Clair has been a gem for 20 years of my life. She was on Best Week Ever. So
I was going to say, she's been for so long, ages and ages.
She's one of those like Missy Pyle Award for acting where it's like she's been in so many things, but so few people know her name.
Yeah.
And I think of Natasha Rothwell as more up and coming, but that's probably not true. She probably has been working a while too. I don't know, but
she broke out on
Insecure.
Yeah. So I think you're right. I think she's probably been working a long time, but she's like a breakout recently.
She has a comedic magnetism, and she, so far, I've seen her in smaller roles and things, and she steals the show in every one. She's so good. And also a very appropriate usage of both Billy Porter and Jennifer Coolidge, who are also very strong ingredients.
Yeah, I would have welcomed their like screen times being swapped, because I am less about Jennifer Coolidge, to be honest.
Okay.
I like her a lot, but I like her in very small doses. Like I like her I like her to be like the caviar garnish. And she was like a little more than that, and I'm a lot more currently into Billy Porter's whole deal.
I've said this several times. I was like, I wish you could buy stock in celebrities, because I would have bought stock in him 2 years ago after he came to Orlando Pride, and I wouldn't be sitting pretty right now.
You would be a millionaire right now.
Because it's in the trailer, but the best scene is the whole when they have to fire him and they start like having a little like personal issue, and he's like, hey, witness my tragic moment. And it just like it's really good. It's the kind of thing that it's like, I'm curious if that was in the script and if it was in the script that way.
Yeah, because it is like we go to the movies very frequently, and so over the past like 4 months we've seen that trailer like 30 times, but it gave the exact same punch in the theater as it did in the trailer, so it was worth it, and his commitment to the moment and everything is so good. Billy Porter's great. We should really watch Pose.
Yeah. To be perfectly honest, I really enjoyed it. It's not for everyone, but it's like, if you like boozy lady comedies with medium stakes, then I say go for it. I mean, it's not like it's not like a smash hit. You got to see it. Like Side Splitting, you'll never be the same. But
no, but here's the thing, and I said it when we got home to my husband. It is like almost verbatim. You're gonna.
I want to say something because I think it'll be funnier the way I'm gonna say it. I watched the entire movie, and at the end, when they're dancing, and there is spoiler alert. Should we say who the cameo is?
We don't have to if you don't want to.
Go see the movie to find out the cameo. Well, we're going to ruin it. It's Lisa Kudrow. And So, which got a gasp out of the audience.
Well, which was especially funny because we are such fans that we recognized her voice when she was like off screen still. And we were like, hey, that's Lisa Kudrow. And then when she actually showed up, everybody was like, oh my God, it's Lisa Kudrow.
And then they get up and they sing and dance to Proud Mary. And I was like, this is kind of like a weird spiritual cousin of Romeo and Michelle. And I was like, hold on to that. I was like, that's a good one. And we're not like 3 steps out of the theater and you're like, it was verbatim the plot of Romeo and Michelle. But like, that's fine. And I was like, okay. I thought that was such a nugget that I gleamed onto.
No, I mean, it's about 2 friends who are like trying to get into business or like trying to like make a successful business together. And then they have to like go impress other people outside their circle. Yeah.
I just thought that was such a brilliant like insight of mine. And you were like, it was so derivative of this, but it was fine.
I definitely don't mean it in a bad way. It just like, it absolutely was very, very Romeo and Michelle.
So, and Romeo and Michelle is, I think I saw like Terminator 2 or something, but like the first R-rated movie where I was like, Mom, I want to see this movie. And she was like, okay, I will let you rent this. And I was in 6th grade, I have to say, probably like 11. And 11 or 12, and she rented Romeo and Michelle's High School Reunion, and we watched it, and we loved it. And because it was just language and sex talk, Mom let us watch it. Yeah. And so for me, I was like, this is one of those that actually would be great for like preteens who are just entering the waters of like R-rated movies.
Absolutely.
Because good messaging, harmless. So harmless. Like,
like what's
language in a vagina cake.
The worst thing that they say is they're talking about Barack Obama's dick at the beginning because Tiffany Haddish started having a sex dream about him.
Preteens are already thinking about dicks.
No, of course. And also to me, the funniest part of that exchange is that they both have started having a hard time thinking about him in their sex dreams because they feel bad for Michelle.
Because they read her book.
Yeah, and I just was like, that is a hilarious angle to come at that.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed that.
That's one of those things where I'm like, because I mean, someone like us, we're like, okay, we've seen this a million times, but it's like, if you're 14, it probably would be great. You would probably think it was the funniest thing.
No, for sure, yeah. If that's the thing, is like, Romeo, this would be for some kids today, their Romeo and Michelle.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think it's less nuanced than Romeo and Michelle, but I also have that nostalgia filter that I'm looking at it through.
And it'll also be why they know so many of these people.
Exactly.
Like, it'll be their introduction to all of this. So honestly, I thought it was great. You don't have to run to the theater to spend your money on it, but if you were on a plane or trying to kill some time.
So this is a really good plane movie.
Yeah. It was fine. It was a great, very easy comedy. So
yeah, it was a fun time to spend on a Saturday. I dug it. Two good movies that we saw this weekend that are not going to make any money and aren't doing great critically, so...
We had low expectations, and that's another thing is because it's like we are familiar with the industry, so we know January is a dumping ground. Yeah. And so if anything, it's like if either of these movies came out in like May, we might be like, that was not that good.
Yeah, well, of course, but also, I mean, we are going to see 1917 tomorrow, which is ostensibly Oscar bait, and I have a feeling I'm going to have enjoyed these two movies more than that when I'm done.
Probably,
you know what I mean? Like, I'm fully aware that it's going to be a better quality film, but I'm going to have had a better time at Underwater and Like a Boss. So that's my 2 cents. All right. Well, like we said, recommend both of these movies. And then you can follow us on Twitter @SoI'mWatching, Instagram @SoI'mWatchingTheShow. We're also on Facebook and Tumblr, So I'm Watching the Show. Everything links out from our website, soimwatching.com. And other than that, you can rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes or wherever you listen. And that's it for us. Bye.
Bye.